Hello, I'm David Breeden. I'm the Senior Minister at First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis. And I have with me today Lisa Jacobson, who is Director of Development at PRISM. So, Lisa, first off, what does PRISM stand for?
PRISM stands for People Responding in Social Ministry.
Okay, and what does that mean in practicality?
Yeah, so PRISM was started back in the early 70s by St. Joseph's Parish. And PRISM is not faith-based, but it's faith-partnered. And so we currently have 19 faith-partner congregations, churches, from the communities that we serve who do many, many things for PRISM.
Okay, all right. So how did they decide to do that way back in the beginning?
Really, they saw the need. It started out as just a food shelf, and they started giving out food out of the garage of St. Joe's. And so it has grown over the years to be a much larger 501c3 organization, now serving residents in Golden Valley, Robbinsdale, Crystal, New Hope, and the eastern side of Plymouth.
Okay, say those one more time. So
Yep, it's Golden Valley, Robbinsdale, Crystal, New Hope, and the eastern half of Plymouth.
Okay, and so what kind of programs would we expect if we walk in the door?
The core of PRISM is certainly still the food shelf, and so residents from the communities that we serve can walk in our door. They don't need an appointment. We're open. The food shelf is open Monday through Thursday. 9 o'clock until 4. We do stay open until 7 on Mondays. And they can come in. They can ask for help from the food shelf. It's very simple. Actually, on Monday evenings, we stay open later for also a partnership that we have with the Y, where homeless youth can come and access our food shelf. It's part of a consortium of food shelves in the Twin Cities area. Where it's a no barriers food shelf. Teenagers do not have to show proof of where they live, because if they're homeless, they don't live anywhere, and they can come in and get food at that point as well.
All right.
We also have housing assistance, so we will help people pay their rent. We have what I would call a hand up kind of thinking at PRISM rather than a handout. So if someone needs help with their rent, we will make them kind of go through a process where we teach them budgeting so that they're not in at PRISM every month short on their rent. We also have a financial literacy class that we have people who we serve through our programs attend as well, where they learn things like what the difference between what you need and what you want, for example.
All right.
We also have a program to help individuals and families with transportation. Called Ways to Work. It's a national program. So we take in donated cars, we get them fixed up, and we get them out in the hands of families who need them to get to work through low interest car loans.
That's fascinating. That's one aspect of PRISM that I've never heard about before. How does that work?
The car loan program? Yeah, so a family will come in and basically they just have to go through a process like you would to get a car loan to a certain degree. They have to have income. There are parameters that they must meet, but it's easier for them to get a loan through PRISM than through another source, especially if they have no credit or poor credit as well. And so we make that process as easy as it can be.
So that are most of the people who come through your doors, would you say they are the working poor? They have jobs or?
So knowing that we only serve people in the suburbs, one thing to keep in mind is that suburban poverty is at an all-time high. There are more people in poverty in the suburbs than in the inner city now. And so what we see are people who come in who look just like you and I. They might be driving a nice car, dressed, as if they were, had a great job, but they may recently have been laid off. A couple of individuals who have come through our doors recently. One worked for a large corporation here in the Minneapolis area for the past 22 years. His wife worked for a local nursing home, and they used to be donors to PRISM. They would bring food and donated cash at the end of the year at the holidays. And his wife recently became ill and is now a resident of that same nursing home where she was employed. And now they couldn't afford to pay their rent and to buy food because of the loss of her income. And so that's one example of what we're seeing. It isn't, the same people that come through the doors every month where it's kind of, cyclical poverty. It's just been something they've done all their lives, go to a food shelf. And so that's what they're doing. We just had a 91-year-old man come through who he and his wife, they own a home in Golden Valley, and the view from the sidewalk would certainly not tell you that they had no food in their house. It looks like a nice house, but they've been spending all their fixed income on their medical bills. And so we see a lot, we hear a lot of stories like that, really more so than what you would think the traditional person walking through the doors of a food shelf would be.
That's one of the interesting things that's happened in recently in the United States. Is at one time we thought the center of the cities were the place where the poor people were, kind of centralized and focused in a particular neighborhood or area. But now poverty looks completely different in terms of the way it's spread around.
Right.
Yeah.
And with the economy being what it was, the past few years, houses can be in foreclosure for well over a year before the neighbors ever know that there's trouble in that home. Those people certainly don't put a sign up in their yard that says, "I need help." And so they walk through our doors looking for that help every day.
You mentioned the homeless youth. How do they get to be homeless? Usually.
Yeah. So, variety of reasons. Some get in a fight with their parents, or they have a situation at home where it isn't safe. Maybe their parent is a drug addict, for example. Maybe their mother brings different individuals home that it just isn't a safe place, and so being out on the streets feels safer, and so they leave. What we're finding though with homeless youth is that a high percentage of them, because they're vulnerable and they get to a point where they'll do anything for a warm bed and food, they're trafficked. And that's a problem here in the Twin Cities, larger than you could ever imagine.
Until you work at a place like PRISM, you just don't hear about that much. And so, yeah. How has PRISM changed over time?
Yeah, PRISM has actually gone through a major change even in the past 12 months. Slightly over 12 months ago, PRISM hired a new executive director. Her name is Michelle Ness. She was hired to right-size the organization. Through her assessments, 2 of the programs at PRISM that had existed for many years were taken away or closed up. One was the auto shop, where people could come with their cars and get very low-cost auto repairs. And one was PRISM Express, which was a transportation program that picked up seniors and brought them to doctor's appointments. And sad to say, there is a great need for that program, but it was not a program that was easily funded. There aren't a lot of grants and things that covered the costs, and so PRISM was in a deep, dark hole financially. And if we weren't going to be taken down and close our doors completely, those moves really needed to take place. And then we hadn't had a formal development or fundraising program for a while as well. And so I was hired in October to create that program, and we closed those 2 transportation types of programs and really have moved PRISM, I would say, out of the dark hole, and now we're on our way up. PRISM is looking good. So we're definitely on the road back to recovery.
Great. Well, where does most of the funding come from?
We get a lot of the funding from individuals, from the churches who we work with closely. We do write grants. We don't get a lot of government money. We also don't receive any United Way funds as well. We hope to do that in the future, but that isn't coming into us right now. And so we rely on the community to support the programs, that are out there for their own neighbors. So.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that a family that had been giving
Right.
to PRISM, and then later they needed some back.
Yeah, I think we're all just one step away from being that family. You know, we can't predict what's in our future, and so we need to keep that in mind, you know, that we all could be in that situation and needing a place like PRISM. And, you know, it's a good thing that it exists in our community.
Well, the average American doesn't have very much savings nowadays.
Right.
At one time it was kind of assumed, but nowadays not so much. Most of us are one paycheck away from lots of bad things happening if that paycheck stops. And
Right.
so PRISM is there for
Right.
those. What is coming up in the future in terms of programming then? What are you planning?
Well, we just went through a renovation of our thrift shop. We have a new name and a rebrand of our thrift shop. It's called Shop for Change. And we take donated clothing, small, you know, housewares, knickknacks, shoes, and we turn that around. We have it's open to the public, but it's there for the families that come to PRISM as well. So the caseworkers can give vouchers to those families that might say this family gets 10 items out of the thrift shop, or this woman needs a business suit or dress and a pair of shoes because she has an interview. But it is open to the public for those that just want a good deal. My entire outfit today is from the Shop for Change thrift shop at PRISM.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. So thrift store chic, I think you
Yeah,
said.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's a recent change. We have some upcoming events. We every month do something called Beyond the Shelves. It's a 1-hour look inside PRISM and the work that we do, where people sign up through our website, which is prismmpls.org, and they come through, take a tour, see all of our programs, including our birthday room, which is there for the families we serve when the child has a birthday. They pay $5 and they get 3 gifts, as well as party supplies and wrapping paper and a cake, so that they can celebrate a child's birthday. And so
great.
anyways, they're able to come through and tour and see PRISM from the back door, kind of. And then we also have our gala event coming up. It's called the Taste of the Burbs. And so it's going to be on May 29th at the Metropolitan. It's featuring restaurants from the communities that we serve, like Crave and Filio, Milton's, Nona Rosa, The Lodge, just to name a few. Yep. And so emceed by Fox 9's Leah Bino and Channel 12's sports anchor John Jacobson. So we are selling tickets for this event on our website as well.
And that's going to become a yearly event?
We hope so.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And that information is at your website,
Yes, it
right?
is.
Okay. Well, I know that's been flashing on the screen. All right, so I have lost my job, let's say, and I need some groceries. So what's the procedure? How do I go about getting help?
You just come to PRISM during our open hours, like I said, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4, or Mondays we stay open until 7. And you fill out some paperwork, very general information. What we're trying to do is assess. Maybe you think you just need groceries, but maybe there are some other things that we can help you with as well. And so our caseworker will meet with you, and then you'll simply get a piece of paper that shows the food shelf volunteers how many pounds of food you get for your family. And then it's an options food shelf. So you get to grab a grocery cart and shop. Nobody's handing you a box of food and saying, here's what you get, enjoy it. This way you get to pick the things that you and your family would actually eat. We feel like there's less waste in that model as well. And then you get to the end of that shopping experience in our marketplace and your cart is weighed just to make sure that you're keeping in line with the poundage that you're supposed to receive. And there are certain items that you get to take as much as you can use. Things like bread and produce and dairy. You can take as much of that as your family can use. And then you just go about your way, just like you would if you were at a grocery store.
Well, I guess the first thing that goes when you start getting squeezed financially, it probably is the better foods, isn't it? The vegetables, the fruits,
Exactly.
and that kind of thing. So
Right.
that can help out with the nutrition for families, kids.
Yeah, and we actually in the summer we partner with the local farmers markets, And so at the end of the farmer's market each week, PRISM is allowed to take whatever's left over from many of the farmers, and we put that out for the families we serve to have a lot of fresh produce.
Okay, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Let's say that I have a job, and maybe it's on the other side of the Twin Cities, though. I just, that's what happens at times. We can't move just because our job moved, and I find that I just can't buy that last tank of gas to make it to payday. So, do you have some help in that way?
As far as sometimes we have gift cards for gas as well. We have help for rent, assistance, but we don't just have cash that we give out for other things.
Well, I've experienced as a minister. I've worked with groups like PRISM, and one of the great things for the congregation and for the minister and the people in the office is that suddenly you have an ability to assess, because we all know that people walk into churches or call churches,
right,
and they say, I've got this problem and that problem, and often they do, but we also know that there are some people who are out there to scam the system, and they take advantage. And so what I find most useful as a minister is the fact that programs like PRISM actually assess the real need. And also, as you say, it's not just a Band-Aid.
Right.
You can also restructure.
Exactly. Yeah, we're looking to educate people too, so that we want them to get back on the right path. And so we're not just trying to fix their immediate problem, but figure out what is underlying that problem. So we have, if they're out of a job, we have job coaches and resume help and things like that we can connect people with. So,
Right.
So that's when I say we're very collaborative with others in the community. We work really hard to not just be a duplicative service, but to really fill those gaps. And then when it is a service that already exists in the community, we connect people to those services.
Okay, well, the fortunate people who are watching today, what can they do to help PRISM?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are many things that they can do. The PRISM Thrift Shop and the Food Shelf are 100% staffed by volunteers. Also, our front desk is staffed by volunteers. And so if they have time, even a few hours a week, they could certainly come to PRISM and volunteer. We also have volunteer opportunities for groups to come in. I'm actually hosting a soccer team of teenagers tonight who are bringing donations, and then they're going to work in the food shelf for an hour. So we have many opportunities for people to get involved. We also always need non-perishable food items and items for our thrift shop as well, or they can make a monetary contribution as well. That's always welcome. And they could attend our gala event or a Beyond the Shelves event as well. So there are many ways to help out at PRISM.
Okay, well, great. And so if you've got some time, or maybe you're trying to teach a class about responsibility, might be able to volunteer and come on over. Okay, so let's say I have $100 that I want to give to PRISM. Is it better for me to give you $100, or is it better for me to go to a local grocery store and buy $100 worth of food?
Great question. Food shelves like PRISM are able to purchase perishable food items from food banks like Second Harvest at a great reduction. And so $1 that you would give to PRISM can purchase $2.50 or more, depending on the item, of food. And so it is always best to give cash in that kind of a situation, because we could get more for our money.
Yeah, I mean, it somehow feels more tangible to give, like,
Right.
the Rice Krispies, but I thought that was probably the case, that
Right.
you since you can buy in bulk and you have who the distributors are, that you can actually get much more bang for the buck.
Absolutely.
With cash. So cash is good.
Yes, cash is great.
All right. So, okay, I'm going to walk into this thrift store. Now, one of the interesting things I've seen over time is when I was a little kid, thrift stores were the places where poor people shopped, and they smelled bad and looked bad, and you just kind of had to dig around to find something that you needed. What's your thrift store look like?
Our thrift store is amazing. We have donations from people, beautiful suits, for example, men's suits, Joseph A. Banks suits that were probably several $100s in our thrift shop. We have kids' clothing for 75 cents, but nice stuff. So we've tried to keep it reasonably priced and a really good deal, but you're going to find really nice things. I like to think I dress pretty well. A lot of my business suits are from there. My husband is on local TV, and many times he's wearing a sport coat from the Shop for Change thrift shop. So,
well, that's
pretty nice stuff.
Wow, yeah, that's great. So, if I have some things, and I can bring them by, and what's the procedure? Do I carry them in the front door, or how do I do that?
There's a door marked donations, and there's a doorbell. And if the door is locked, you just ring the doorbell. If we're open, if it's during our hours, someone will come to the door. We'll give you a donation receipt, and you'll go about your way. We take in the donations, and then we sort through them. We don't put everything out in our thrift shop that is donated. We're kind of picky. Okay. And so if it's out of style, torn, stained, we don't put it out, but what we do is we have a big bin that the Salvation Army comes twice a week, and they take the items that we don't want. And so it's nice to know that even if it's something we're not going to use, somebody will. We'll just keep it rolling down the track.
Well, and one of the things that I found interesting that I guess I hadn't thought of until someone had to tell me, maybe I'm just a little dim about that, but that also it's green to buy thrift shop clothing. You're putting a dent in the sweatshop chain often, and not wasting resources that are because we do produce a lot more clothing in the world than we actually need, I suppose.
Right.
So
yes,
so it's
a great way to think of that.
It's a win-win, right? Okay, all right. So I know that my wife happens to direct a program in Robbinsdale area, and I know that we have a lot of immigrant families who don't quite understand the system sometimes, or they don't quite get something that because of different cultural norms, language problems. Do you help those folks too?
We do. So when someone comes in, maybe there's a language barrier, or they're having trouble, maybe they're having trouble with their electric bill, and they need to call, down to Excel Energy. But because of that language barrier, that isn't easy. Our caseworker will get on the phone and handle that with them in the room, side by side in partnership with them. We also do have, the availability of, help if we need someone who speaks Russian, for example. We have those people that we can call to be that, kind of on the phone and help in that process as well.
So you're a resource for
Exactly.
people when they come in. They
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And navigating just simple things in a different culture and a different language. I mean, I certainly don't get around in the Czech Republic very well because I can't even read the signs, right?
Right.
So suddenly all your assumed brilliance goes away when you have a language barrier or something of that
Right.
nature. So you do reach out and help people
Right,
in that way.
and then we try to put the signage in our food shelf, for example, in many of the languages of the people who do walk through our doors, so that they don't feel like they're in this foreign place. That they know, how to find the items that they're looking for as well. So, we really try to meet them where they're at.
Well, that's an interesting model too that you mentioned actually being able to shop for the food, because one of the things that I know people kind of chafe at is the fact of not having a choice at some point.
Right.
And if you can't buy food, you have to cook if your gas has been shut off at home, for example, and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So, and often that's very embarrassing to have to talk about. So.
Right. We have an ethnic food section. We have food, for kids. Summer's coming rather quickly here, and kids are going to be home from school, and a lot of them will be, home during the day alone and needing easy things that they can cook. As well. And so to just hand a family a box, we don't feel is treating them with much dignity as being able to have them shop as if they were paying for it at the end. The only difference is they aren't.
That's great. Okay, so let's go down the programs one more time because sometimes people tune in late and don't get the early part of a program, but they may be listening with a great attention at this point after hearing these good things you're doing. So what are some of the programs again?
So we have a food shelf.
Food shelf.
We have
where you actually get to shop.
Yeah. We have our birthday room as well.
So if you got a kid's birthday coming up and you're pinched, you can come on over. Okay.
And we also have programs at certain times of the year, like for school supplies, where families can get those. At the holidays, they can get gifts and stocking stuffers. We also have our Ways to Work transportation program, where they can get low interest car loans. And then we have assistance with rent payments as well.
That's great.
And then our Shop for Change thrift shop.
That is so good. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have a job when my kids were young, but I remember getting those school lists at the beginning of a school year, and that adds up pretty quickly.
Absolutely, it's overwhelming.
So you're helping with that as well.
Right.
Okay, great. Well, let's also talk about the upcoming events one more time, and tell us about your ongoing events and the really big show. Okay.
Yeah, so Beyond the Shelves is our ongoing monthly event where you can get a look inside the work of PRISM. Many people give to PRISM through their church, and they don't really understand what we do there. And so it's been a great opportunity for them to walk through our doors and find out more. And then we have our Taste of the Burbs Gala coming up on May 29th at the Metropolitan. Tickets are on sale on our website, and we have sponsorship opportunities, and we're always looking for more auction items as well.
That's great. And I did mention the fact that cash is good because you can get more bang for your buck. But another thing that people with a little time, many people work is a 12-hour a day issue, kids, et cetera, but often just throwing some money into a collection plate at the churches where I've been, we do special Sundays. We're going to give to PRISM this particular Sunday. But the people who go to the next step and actually get involved with the people and actually come down and volunteer, that really, I think, transforms people at times.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's we have volunteers who come to work and treat it like their job, and they're there every week. And if they're sick or they're on vacation, they call us or let us know. They take it very seriously, and I look to them as if they were coworkers of mine, because they are people that are there and as invested in what we're doing, helping the families from our community as much as I am. And so they're just not getting a paycheck, and how amazing is that? And people who have just retired, for example, sometimes you feel like, well, what am I going to do? I'm accustomed to working 10 hours a day. Absolutely.
And suddenly, what do I do? How do I help out and give back to the world? And that's just a transformative experience I've found for people when
Yeah, absolutely. We have hundreds of volunteers at PRISM who do that on a regular basis, and so we're very proud of them and what they do for these families.
And it can change one's attitude about what poverty really means in America too, I think. So many, I find that when people get in trouble, it's often a cascade effect. One paycheck behind, or the car blows up, and suddenly you do, just one thing, and then all the dominoes begin to fall.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And we hope that people come to us when that first domino falls, so that we can help them before their whole life turns upside down.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Lisa Jacobson, Director of Development at PRISM. It's been really, really great talking with you today.
Thank you.
Very informative, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
I'm David Breeden. I'm the Senior Minister at First Unitarian Society. Thank you for watching Free Thinkers Forum.